Killzone 2. What are your initial thoughts, overview, and we'll get into the nitty gritty. But what was your takeaway finally jumping into Killzone 2 after Killzone 1?
Yeah, it was really nice to experience it again. It's a game that I loved when it first came out. I was sort of the time it came out as well. You know, the age I was. I mean, when it came out, 2009, so I would have
Yes.
been like 13 maybe. So I was sort of at that age where everything was awesome, and
Right.
this was like the big thing, and the graphics I remember were great, and I remember just loving it. And I remember at this time all of my friends were on Xbox, so it was kind of like I was kind of like, yeah, have you seen this Killzone 2 game? It looks so much better than everything. And I said, but now I play it, I don't think it's aged terribly well. I think it definitely plays well and looks great still, but um, it's just not anything breathtaking. I mean, the set pieces we've now seen it lots of times before, and it doesn't do necessarily anything that exciting, and it's quite short as well. It's just not. It just feels like quite a below par experience in some ways, I thought, but I did really enjoy it, and I think they capture the sort of feeling of invading somebody else's planet really well with how difficult it is. The AI is very aggressive compared to Killzone 1, and very difficult to handle even on normal difficulty. So I definitely think as a shooter, just to play and try and get through it, it's great fun, and stands up well. But I think one bit that I really loved was the end, when you're storming the library, and it's so difficult, and you're just constantly. I mean, it's like the sort of classic D-Day sequence that we've seen in movies and games, where you're sort of, and in real life, obviously, it did happen.
Well, we don't
Where
know.
you're sort of trying, where you're trying to sort of storm like a very heavily guarded area, and you're just dying and dying and dying and trying to sort of get through it, and then the very final bit when you fight Radek is so difficult, but really well put together and very satisfying when you do finally beat him. But yeah, no, I did definitely enjoy it. But I've also gone back to Killzone 1 now, because I finished this maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday, because I want to try and get the platinum on the first Killzone. And yeah, I think I do prefer the first Killzone over the second one. I think
What?
I mean, I just think obviously the second game is a newer, more modern game and technically better and everything, but I just think Killzone's just the first one is just a lot more fun and just has a lot more variety, and I mean, playing through as the other characters now in the first Killzone, I didn't realize how different the playthrough actually is when you play as them. Like I'm playing as Luger now, and it actually changes the route you take in levels and some of the dialogue bits, and obviously the weapons are different. So yeah, I think I mean the problem is with Killzone 2 is that when it first came out, it was such a massive leap technically. So the short sort of length of it and the maybe surface level content was forgivable, especially when it had multiplayer and that was in its prime. But I think now, in hindsight, I just think the first Killzone is just a more complete package and can offer you a little bit more in terms of just general fun and content. But playing through that again, I did love my time with it. I just think it's a bit more of a one and done than the first game is.
Yeah, I think we're a bit opposite on this, where I really love my time with Killzone 2. We talked last week how I was really I was dragging my heels getting through the first Killzone, but I love the improvements over the core gameplay. I really loved how the controls felt way tighter. There wasn't that weird sway with the reloading and swapping weapons. It's way more actiony. I dug the set pieces. I agree that what you're saying with the set pieces themselves, and like if you're going to compare this to shooters around the same time, like say Call of Duty, I don't know if they reach those heights, but it's definitely a good it's a good comparison, or it's a good attempt to nail that same gameplay. I love the visuals. I think they still hold up to me. I was really kind of blown away how I dug that, just the quality of the visuals and how I think they really stand up still. I do hear what you're saying as well with the going back to Killzone 1. I was expecting in Killzone 2 the same kind of change on gameplay a little bit with you have your 4 characters in Killzone 1. I was hoping for a little bit of a change to that same degree, but they really just keep you with that same protagonist. They do switch it up a little bit. Say there's like the mech suit at one point. You can swap weapons differently, but they do kind of follow that same single player FPS shooter mechanic, you know, at that time where it's just you're following that main character and there's no change there. But I would have liked that same dip into switching up the gameplay as Killzone 1 did.
Yeah,
I imagine in Killzone 3 they
yeah,
kind of gave that up as well. But no, overall
yeah,
I really dug it. I was a little bit frustrated towards the end because it's just so it's just so hard, man. They throw a million people
yeah,
at you and they're coming
yeah.
from everywhere. That's one thing that I loved as
Mm,
well about the gameplay is just like the AI is so smart. And
yeah.
if not smart, they're aggressive where they're moving around constantly where it's hard to shoot them because they're taking cover,
Mm,
they're running around, they're pursuing you. They're just it makes it really fun to play against this AI.
mm,
And for me that was what kept me going through it. But I overall really dug it. I was impressed with the audio too. It's just leaps and bounds over the first Killzone. I really did not like that flat sounding audio. This is, you know, sounds like
mhm.
full stereo
Yeah.
audio. There's a little bit of a callback to the first Killzone with the way the Helghast talk to you. It's just like they're using that same kind of mantra but updating it. I really dug those just little you know callbacks to Killzone 1. But
Yeah.
I really dug it. The story was, you know, improved, but I think maybe I enjoyed the first Killzone story a little bit better. It
Mm,
was a little more unique.
yeah.
But I love the just the Helghast, you know, villains are put on full display here. They really lean hard into the Nazi iconography
Mm,
with Killzone 2, and I really dug how these are
yeah.
just basically Nazis in space, and I'm all on
Mhm.
board to just, you know, to just shoot them up and love their suits and the design on the characters. Yeah, I was just super overall positive on Killzone 2.
Yeah, I think you're right about the story as well. I think the story is definitely a weak part of the game, and I think back in the day that was something that was criticized. Well, I mean, this game received so many plaudits when it first came out, rightly so. I mean, at the time, this was just incredible. I mean, it felt heavier and grittier than Battlefield, but it still controlled really well. And the multiplayer, I know I talked about it before, but the multiplayer was just amazing. In fact, I might even play the offline version, the skirmish mode on there against AI, just because, like you said, the AI is amazing. So it's still a way to experience those brilliant maps and the game modes. But yeah, the story I found was really poor. I think they got the major parts right, sort of when Templar obviously gets killed and he's the main character from the first game, and Radek and Visari I think are amazing characters. I think the scene when or the whole part when the ISA space sort of ship gets boarded, I think is brilliant. But I hated Rico. I thought they ruined Rico because in the first Killzone, he is very argumentative and aggressive, but he still does the right thing all the time.
Mm.
Whereas in this one, there's just nothing redeemable about him. He's the reason Garza gets killed because he's too aggressive, and then at the end when he kills Vasari as well, it's just he's just a really irritating character I find in Killzone 2, and I think that doesn't help the already quite lackluster story anyway. But yeah, I think you're right. Killzone 1 probably does have a stronger story, and it does vary where the story takes place, which is probably why I think it's easier to play sort of again. I wouldn't really want to play Killzone 2 so soon again, just because there isn't a huge amount of variety to it. But yeah, but yeah, I mean, I might sound like I'm being too negative about it. I did really love it, and especially for the reasons you say, like the graphics are great, the AI is fantastic, the game feels great as well, and the soundtrack is just brilliant. And I love the introducing cutscene that plays every time you boot the game up as well. It's one of the best sort of cinematic introductions to any game today. I think it's just amazing. So yeah, I mean, there's not necessarily much I don't like about it. I just don't think it's aged quite as well as maybe the first game has. I'm not saying the first game has aged that well either, but I just think it's more fun to play today than the second one.
Callum, you hated it. Just be honest with me, okay? I did pull up the Metacritic, so it has a 91 Metacritic, which is super strong. Although one of
Mm,
the first reviews is from PlayStation Magazine, which gave it 100. And when I saw
mm.
that, it's like I don't know if I can trust you guys. You know, I know who pays your bills, so it's like a
Yeah,
little bit of bias. But yeah, it's got a strong
yeah.
Metacritic. So some of the facts, you know, came out 2009. So it's 2.5 years into the PS3 life cycle. I did find it interesting. So that infamous 2015 demo, E3 demo, where they showed off that CG, cutscene, and then claiming at the time, apparently there was a little more drama where a lot of PlayStation reps were saying this is full blown gameplay in engine, and then they had to very quickly walk it back to eventually
Mm,
revealing, no, this is CG, like this is their target footage.
mhm,
But I think as far as
mm.
that pretty infamous target footage, they really nailed the gameplay as much as they could on that current hardware at that time. Like I think it looks very very close to that render, and it's pretty nuts. I think it'll go
Yeah,
down as just a crazy moment where they really bet on themselves and said, "Hey, we can do this," and then pretty much supplied that. So it was 2015 when that demo released, and then 4 years later the game came out. So really, with 4 years of dev time, I feel like they maybe got that CG render going, and then quickly started working on the game. So I don't know if they really
mm,
had how much they had going already. Maybe they understood that they
yeah,
could reach those heights, but it's pretty
mm,
interesting to drop that huge demo and then have to somehow figure it out. I think that'll go down in history as just
yeah,
an awesome moment for. But it's a huge gamble because if it did not work, if it looked anything slighter than what we ended up getting, they would have just been dragged through just internet
yeah,
drama. But yeah, no, I
yeah.
really loved the visuals and overall really dug this game.
Yeah, and you say about the 2005 E3 showing. I mean, you got to remember the first Killzone came out the year before that, so it's a pretty amazing turnaround to get this out when it did come out, and to have it looking and playing the way it did with a really robust multiplayer. And I think maybe that is why things like the story and the length of the game and the content of the single player maybe took a hit. But I think even with that considered, it is a remarkable achievement what they did, especially with how middling the reviews for the first Killzone was, which I don't really understand. But it's an impressive turnaround for sure, and I'm really excited to play the third one because I for some reason I just don't remember the third game. Most of my sort of like scattered memories of the series were in Killzone 2. There's a couple of things I can kind of remember about the third one, but I'm really really excited to play that one because again that one was reviewed brilliantly and is meant to be one of PS3's best games.
Yeah, I think the third one, all I remember is there's jetpacks at some point. Either you have them or the Helghast have them. I did this, so the that ending. I think the last battle was although it was crazy hard. I think they made you. I felt like I earned that very last cutscene because it's
Mm,
the similar thing with Halo 2. If you remember, you have this lead up to the end, and then Master Chief jumps out and he's like, "I'm going to finish this fight," and then fade to black. It's like that's how they end the game. They do
yeah,
something similar with
yeah,
Killzone 2 where they showed those huge ships coming in and there's going to be another
yeah.
battle happening, but I didn't feel slighted because the battle before was just so
Mm.
intense. I felt like
It was a
okay,
great conclusion. Yeah,
right, I was fine with a breather because it was just so much you had to get through, to get to that ending. So even though they ended it somewhat similar where there's still the next big moment to happen, I was at ease with that last boss level and that whole siege in the
yeah,
capital level. But
yeah.
I did find that interesting. But yeah, I wonder where they take it with the third one. And where were those ships, the ships before? Like, were they just on the other side of the planet? Were they coming from another planet? But they just kind of showed up, and it's going to make everything worse for the not the humans, but the whatever their society is to fight these Helghast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how long it took you to beat that last bit, but it took me about 2 hours. So I think that's plenty of time for the ships
Yeah,
to gather. But no, that's really interesting. Actually, I didn't think about that at all. I think because of how well it was done, it just didn't even cross my mind.
right.
But you're right. Normally, if something ends like that, you'd expect it to continue because it is a very cliffhanger ending, especially like we are saying with how short it is. I mean, I think it took me about 7 hours to beat.
Same.
Um, and so you would expect a very big cliffhanger like that to rub people the wrong way, but you're completely right. They sort of handled that end sequence so well that for it to continue would feel strange because that was just such an epic conclusion. You knew that entire time you were at the end because it felt like that final push, and like you said, it was so difficult. Even though I have no idea how people could do that on the hardest difficulty.
Mhm.
And I mean, I looked up beforehand about the trophies. I know that there's lots you can't get the platinum because of the multiplayer, but people were saying about the elite difficulty being just horrendously hard, and I can see why. But yeah, no, that's a really really good point about the end. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, it gets me, super excited to see what they change in the third
Mhm.
one. I did feel so I was very similar with this on the first Killzone. although they changed it up. So that first half, or those first, 2 hours rather, of Killzone 1, it's that kind of bland, aesthetic, but then they really switch it up with the different environments as you trade characters and go through the game. With Killzone 2, I didn't get as much of that. Like, you really stay in the streets of Helgen for a while. While it's beautiful, it still has this kind of like green overlay, color overlay, and it's cool, but it's just not, it kind of overstays its welcome, that visual style. And then you eventually get to that sand world, or that sand area with the bugs. That was a welcome change up. And then it kind of goes back to that same, destroyed city element. I would have liked them to switch up the environments a bit more. I'm hoping Killzone 3 does that. But I was, especially since the engine I think is so beautiful, I want to see them try these different environments. So I was a little bit let down in Killzone 2 when they just didn't switch it up very much.
Yeah, from what I can remember of Kills, the thing I can remember for Killzone 3 is it having a much more vibrant color palette. It goes much more into the wilderness of the planet, because obviously, as you'd expect, it picks up straight from the end of the second. So you're sort of stranded behind enemy lines kind of angle, which is what I was saying when we were talking about the first game. Is I like that each game, including Shadowfall, has a very particular, unique sort of theme to it, sort of angle that the story's going for, and I think that's a really, really cool thing that not enough series do, particularly first-person shooters. So yeah, I think that probably was a complaint that they got about Helgen being just too dark and too dull. And they just sort of maybe introduce a new lore or new things about the planet, and because I know there's a lot more sort of alien creatures in it, just a lot more eye candy in the third game, and yeah, I can't wait to get it started. I was going to start it straight after, but I thought I'd wait and start it sort of maybe tonight, and so that we sort of have a similar sort of time frame. But yeah, I can't wait to play that.
Yeah, I was hoping as well in Killzone 2, but when you are introduced to those bugs, those electro bugs, I was assuming we're gonna fight, a huge monster mama bug, but never happened. So I'm really hoping they dig in, like you're saying, to the just the animal life in that world. I feel like you could have some cool set pieces with these, crazy alien monsters. Yeah, I think I'm super excited to jump into Killzone 3, and I'm ending this, this chapter really really happy that I actually completed this storyline, because it's one game that I've never fully gone back to and actually seen all the way through, but it's just for some reason it always missed me, and I'm glad to jump back into it.
Yeah, and I mean, just quickly, to not to sort of carry on or anything, but if I'd recommend just quickly switching on the first Killzone again, because I think there is a certain feeling that you get when you, like, after you play the second one, you go back to the first one. I think it actually makes the first one a bit better in a way, just because you're more engrossed in the world and the characters and everything, and because I don't know, I know that when you first played Killzone 1, you said it felt very heavy and slow, but Killzone 2 is like on another level. It's so much slower and heavier. When you play the first Killzone, you actually feel quite light. It feels a lot more fast paced. So it's quite an interesting thing to go back and. But yeah, it's they're great games, and yeah, I'm looking forward to playing through 3 and Shadowfall as well.
Yeah, I can't be bothered to go back to Killzone 1. I'm just gonna forget that I ever played it. No, it would be interesting to kind of flip back and forth and see those changes. I might do that, or I might not.
Yeah.